bit so I can hear myself talk. Alright. What are we? 8 minutes late? Opening my drink. Take a swoop. It's good stuff. Banana I had earlier is not really jiving with it though. Funnily enough. Alright. If any of you guys haven't noticed, there are a lot of live action... Well, not even just live action remakes. Just there's a lot of remakes coming out as of late. I mean, look at what Disney's doing. Got $5 billion there. Everybody was kind of meh about Aladdin from what it sounds like. You got Final Fantasy VII remake here. I'm playing a freaking remake right now. Like, there are a lot of remakes. And you know, like, I like this remake. The game of this remake, this is great. Fantastic. This game, of any game, in my opinion, deserved a graphical upgrade and a remake. And I love what they did with it. There's one thing in here or there that I'd change. But overall, real good. The same can't be said for a lot of the remakes that are out there. Pretty much whenever a new Disney remake comes out, and of course you know they're going to come out, they're going to do Little Mermaid. I'm pretty sure I heard an announcement. Little Mermaid's coming out. Ooh. They just did Aladdin. Dumbo is coming up too, and I'm just like, can we have an original idea? But Coco is great. I really like Tangled. Frozen, not so much of a fan. I guess Moana was kind of original. I wasn't really a fan of Moana either. It's alright. It didn't really poke at any parts. But anyway, in short, I'm not a fan of all of these remakes, you know? I would like to see a little bit more originality, or a little more creativity in stories. But I'm also don't like it for another reason, that it feels like, I mentioned this earlier, on an earlier show. I'm not a fan of people taking my childhood and then trying to sell it back to me. You know? Like, I'm going to call this nostalgia feeding. That's what we call it, nostalgia feeding. Feeding into my generation's nostalgia. My generation especially is super nostalgic. Actually, never mind, scratch that. Every generation is nostalgic. My generation just understands how to use the internet. And so they perpetuate their own ideas on the internet. And talk about how great being a 90s kid was, and how awesome this movie was, and that game was, and our childhood was the best. But see, the thing is my parents said the same thing. The only reason, hey, single viewer, I'm guessing it's Twiki, come join, hang out. I'm talking about how much I don't like all of the remakes and stuff that are going on as of late. Like Disney and stuff. But anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. So you got, like, my parents. They had much the same thing. You know, to them, their childhood was great. Going out playing kick the can, and... you know, I don't really know what 80s kids... Dungeons and Dragons, if you were a nerd. I don't know, what else did 80s kids do? I don't really know. It wasn't my generation. But, you know, they loved their childhood. They loved growing up. So everybody loves their own childhood. And I just think, for our generation in particular, hey, second viewer, what up? For our generation in particular, because we know how to use the internet, and because we are becoming adults, and as time goes on, things become, you know, media gets larger and larger and larger and more important. That's why we're seeing a lot of the remakes of the stuff that we liked. Like, all of the Disney movies, this Final Fantasy VII remake, again, this game that I'm playing right now. I'm sure there's some others that are coming out. You know, I know everybody wants them to remake Chrono Trigger and whatnot. So, but again, I don't like the idea of people making money off of my childhood. And I have to wonder, who is responsible for this? Like, I want to say at first, you know, it's the big companies. They're just lazy, and they want to put out a product that they know. They want to put out a safe product that won't take that much time, but will earn them a bunch of money. Oh, I love those shots. But you know, the only reason they can get away with it is because we consume it. We just eat it up. Yeah, Original ideas? No, 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 no. I want to see my childhood again. It's an issue, though. Because A, it means that there's no creativity, and B, no matter how good a remake is... Well, that's not true. A remake could eventually even be better than what the original. That is definitely a possibility. It's very unlikely, though. Especially when they're chopping them out so fast. Oh, man, we lost a viewer. That's a bummer. Where was I going with this? Can you remind me where I was going with this? Feeding me back my childhood. Don't like it. Oh yeah, who is responsible for this? So, but we consume it. I mean, big companies wouldn't do any of this if we didn't give them money for it. And you know, I haven't gone to see any of these Disney remakes. It's not like I'm choosing to not see them because I'm trying to make a statement or whatever and not give them my money. I'm just not interested. But you know, I kind of wonder if we should. Like, hey, Disney, stop making these remakes. Make some original ideas so that my children can have a childhood separate from my own. Unless maybe what most people want is they want their child to have a childhood just like theirs, because everybody thinks their childhood is the best. And nostalgia makes everything rose-tinted. Again, I for one, I've expressed it. I want my children to have their own childhood. I want them to do their own things, find their own stuff, have their own fun, come up with their own ideas. And I'm kind of annoyed that there's a chance that they might not get as full of an experience because my generation is too busy demanding remakes and feeding into remakes and just reiterations of the stuff that they liked, you know? So something I'm really looking forward to. And to connect this in a little bit more a broader idea, when you look at like Eastern philosophy, I guess it kind of makes sense in a Western sense, and I'm using these very general terms, just remember. But Western stuff tends to be really into the whole idea of eternity, preservation, things lasting forever. Most Westerners are kind of afraid of death, you know? Death is a thing to be afraid of. It's the end, it's the oblivion, the bleak, the blackness. And so the goal is to not die and to live forever. Move, horse! There we go. But in Eastern philosophy, I don't get that vibe. I mean, dying is a sad affair. That is true in Eastern ways of thinking. But it's kind of just, oh, it's a fact of life. Everything ends eventually, but everything begins again. In fact, like, so you got the Buddhist idea. Buddhism shaped East Asian thought so much. The idea of Buddhism is that everything is impermanent, everything is changing, everything is in flux. But also the idea that everything is going to end, so if you put your desires into things that are inevitably going to end, you are going to end up being sad and depressed, and, of course, naturally. Because if you put your desires in a thing that disappears, well, it will disappear, and then you'll be left with nothing but empty desire, which is bad. But you know, I find it really interesting because when those ideas made it to Japan, they kind of accepted that. You know, they leaned into this idea that everything comes to an end, everything is transient, everything is fleeting. But they almost turned it back around on its head and saw that as a reason to celebrate. Like, the transient and the inevitable are not sad. In fact, they're cause for celebration. For it is because of that very reason that they will end. Hey, second viewer. Got people jumping on, back off and on. But because of that very reason that they are going to end, that gives the fact that it exists meaning. So I very much wish my generation would listen a little bit more to this idea that, you know what, it's fine if our childhood ends. We had our time. We enjoyed it. We should have enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it as much as you should have, that's a bummer, but you should still, you need to move on, you know? You need to let the past go. It's over. It's gone. We're adults now. We should do adult things. And if you want to get a piece of that, the best way would be to have kids. Have kids and give them their own childhood, give them their own memories, their own things that they would love. That's how you can experience that. It won't be the same. Of course, it will never be the same. But no matter what you try, you can't go back. And you know, if your childhood could continue forever, it wouldn't be special anymore. Childhood would continue forever, and then it just wouldn't be special. It just would be, and nobody wants that. Come on, you want to feel like children are special, don't you? I don't know. Maybe I'm assuming things here, but that's the way I see it. You know, it's okay if it ends. That gives it meaning. Moving on. So, I'm going into academia. Academia is kind of I don't know how you say it. It's kind of weird, honestly. Writing papers and arguing. That's especially when it comes to the humanities, man. That's all it is. It's just a big old argument and debate. Big old conversation. But you know what I don't get, right? If you ever read a freaking academic journal article, you ever read one of those suckers? Makes absolutely no sense. Use these huge words that nobody's ever heard before. They use sentence structures that I don't know. Talking about things that I'm just like, what? You know, even in those classes that I was taking this last semester, where I kind of understood a base idea of what was going on. Like, if I have to look up every other word in your article, that's not good. Especially, see, we're going into a little bit different topic, but we're going to go into art in a little bit. Because the thing with academic journals is the goal is to communicate effectively and communicate knowledge. I mean, that's what a journal is supposed to be. It's supposed to be you do a study, you find or you have a new idea, or you make a new analysis, and you want to share it and you want to get it out there so everybody can consume it, analyze it, understand it, and possibly make a rebuttal. Point out the flaws in your argument or whatever. Now, it is my impression, it is my idea, that the academic, like every other person who lives in society, his or her job is supposed to serve the greater good, is supposed to serve society. Which is great. I mean, disseminating knowledge, like bringing knowledge out to the general public, that's amazing. That's great. That's wonderful. It's fantastic. But if you look at the way they write, and because it's so hard to freaking understand, I get the feeling that that's not what they're going for. Because if I'm in college, and this is my gig, is to understand, and trying to understand these bigger words, and understand this, Japanese history, or whatever the heck it is I'm studying, if I can't understand your article, something has gone wrong here. You're not communicating well. You're communicating pretentiously. And it's really obnoxious, and I hate it. So why do academics do this? Well, part of the reason I want to go into academia is because I see a problem in this regard. And I want to be a voice of reason and try to help maybe fix this. Academics kind of seem to be they have their own exclusive club. They like to think they're smarter than everybody. I mean, more educated maybe, about very, very specific topics. But they tend to think that they are smarter than everyone, and they tend to think that their job and their path in life is kind of the best path in life. Like, duh, going to college is what you should do. And I'm just like, I don't agree. I mean, I think it's good for me, because I'm just an insufferable nerd who likes to talk about everything, just like to talk about stuff, like I'm doing right now. Just rambling on about random stuff. But that's not for everybody. And just because you become a plumber, or a miner, or, I don't know, a welder or something, doesn't mean you're an idiot. I mean, those are legitimate skills that take years of practice and training to get down good. I can't fix jack anything in my bathroom. Like, if my sink breaks, well, I'm screwed. My toilet goes out, I'm in trouble. My lights stop working for some reason, I don't know. I don't know what all them wires do. I don't know what the difference between AC and DC is. I mean, alternating current, direct current, I know what they stand for, but I don't know what the difference is between them, and I don't know what the application of that knowledge is, you know? But academics tend to think I get the vibe that they tend to think that they are smarter than everybody. So academic journals, instead of being something that you can take to the public, academic writing tends to be writing for other academics. And I get the feeling that part of the reason why they use those big words is because they're trying to show off. Oh, look at how smart I am. I can use big words that all of the uneducated plebeians don't understand. No. Now, maybe I'm totally assuming stuff here. Again, I'm not an academic. Not yet. I'm gonna be. But I do very distinctly get that feeling. And I don't like it. And I want to fix it if I can. I want to be a professor who can explain something, who can explain history, and explain these bigger concepts in ways that a 5-year-old can understand, you know? Which, that's true. That's true intelligence. I mean, that's true wisdom. Is understanding a concept so thoroughly that you can explain it in such a way that anyone can understand. So, when it comes to communication... Oh, there's a little dust devil. Ha! Cool. When it comes to communication, what's the ultimate goal? In academic communication, I would assume that the goal is, well, I mean, the goal of communication, is transmitting an idea. With academics, I feel like you should get straight to the point. There should be as little up in the air as possible. And it should just be, boom, I understand. Got it. But then you look over on the opposite end of the spectrum, something like art, okay? I remember when I was younger, I used to say, okay, art is about expression, art is about communication. So if your art is so obnoxiously... What's the word? It's so obnoxiously, like, beat around the bush and not to the point, that nobody else understands what you're saying, you've failed as an artist. But you know, I've taken that idea and I shifted it over to academic type and politics and stuff like that. If you don't actually communicate an idea clearly and effectively, you failed. Art is different though. As time goes on, I feel like art can be more vague, can be more beat around the bush. Because in doing those things, you can communicate certain things as well. Or you're trying to communicate to a very specific group of people who have experienced some emotion or some experience, have experienced an experience. But somebody who is on board and can understand. In that case, I can see where vagueness could actually be good. Vagueness in a lot of the songs that I like, because I listen to metal and stuff, and I feel like they're very poetic. But part of the poetry is that it's vague. The lyrics are vague. You don't really know what they're talking about. But that makes it so it's malleable. The meaning can shift and change, and you can adapt it to your own personal... You can relate it to yourself somehow. Man, we keep getting a second viewer, and then they just keep leaving. Make me sad. So, essentially, when it comes to almost every kind of communication, you want to be straightforward, you want to be clear, and you want as little bit of vagueness as possible. But when it comes to art, and again, even then, art is weird because it can be one way or the other. Maybe you want to be straightforward. Maybe that's your goal, is you just want to get straight to the heart of the matter and just pew! But maybe a more roundabout way is more effective. Like, Japanese poetry, because I'm a nerd and I always gotta relate things back to ancient East Asia, ancient Japan. So, Oh shoot, what was it? I remember when I was in Japan, we were teaching English, and I had the advanced class, okay, which meant that I knew the least amount of Japanese, and that's why they put you in the advanced classes, because you didn't know enough Japanese to teach the non-advanced English speakers. But I always like to talk about poetry because I'm like, this is a section of English that might be useful to know. And I remember that's the first time, because I mean, in school you learn about haikus and whatnot. Oh, hey, horse. You learn about haikus and whatnot, but you don't really understand the point of it. And then I remember my students were all old Japanese people, by the way. They related to me, I'm pretty sure it was a poem by Matsuo Basho, about being on, it was just, it's just 3 lines, the something something beach, and then night sky, the Milky Way. And just the way they said it and the way they delivered it, I could see, like despite it being extremely vague and extremely short, I had a very vivid picture in my head. Or like another really good haiku by Matsuo Basho is, I don't remember how it starts, I would have to look it up, but it's like a still pond. No, is it like in the mountains, frog jumps into a pond, the sound of water. And even just that little bit, it's really vague. It's not descriptive, it's not effective. Well, I guess you could call it effective. But it's very vague, but yet you could just, oh, I got it. It's almost mysterious how powerful that is, But then again, maybe you could have something like The Raven, which is probably one of, if not my favorite English poem by Edgar Allan Poe. The Raven is very descriptive, and he uses very specific language to get across a very specific idea. And he does a fantastic job of it. So with art, it really depends on what serves your situation, what serves your purposes better. If you want to be direct, or if you want to be beat around the bush. If you want to be very clear, or if you want to be vague. However, in almost every other form of communication... Hold on. That might not be right. Because again, going back to my experience with Japan, so Americans typically are on the one end. Americans, if they had their way, if they were really good at communication, because a lot of Americans are kind of crap at it, they would be very effective. Americans tend to prize or respect honesty, respect descriptiveness. The less that's up in the air for an American, the better. But for Japanese, the opposite is true, even in everyday conversation. In fact, it's almost, in Japanese culture, the more you leave up in the air, the better. Because then people can take it and interpret it however they need to. So I got an idea forming in my head. But I don't know if I can come up with the idea of what I want to say. So like, I mean, this is kind of a stupid example, but in The Last Samurai, okay? So, Nathan Algren, Tom Cruise, kills Taka, or Koyuki is the name, the love interest. He kills her husband early in the movie. And, then the samurai capture him, take him back to their camp, and they actually put him in Taka's care. So this woman has to take care of the man who killed her husband. And she's upset, understandably. But she does it. And in one scene she goes to Katsumoto, her brother / the leader of the samurai rebellion, and tells her, I can't handle it anymore. It's too much. It's too much. I can't kill him because he won't let me, so can I kill myself? And he goes, no, you can't do that. And she's complaining about him, and I can't stand it. And then he walks into their room. Now, he doesn't speak Japanese. So, she looks at Katsumoto and bows and just leaves. And then Algren, Tom Cruise, says, she's been very kind to me. It's kind of like a thankful thing, even though he killed her husband. At least he's civil about it. And Katsumoto just nods and gives him kind of this weak smile and says she's honored to have my guest in her house. Which, that's not what she was actually saying. But you know, I gotta kind of wonder if Katsumoto had been like, yeah, she actually hates you. I mean, I'm sure Nathan Algren would have understood, like, well, I mean, I did kill her husband. But there's gonna be, so there's friction on the part of Taka. By doing this, I mean, even if he had told Algren, hey, she hates you, there still would be friction on her end, because the issue hasn't been resolved. Her issue with him isn't that he doesn't know that she hates him. Her issue is that he killed her husband. And so maybe by not telling Algren, and by letting him assume that she's actually being very kind and doesn't harbor these ill feelings. I mean, again, there's still friction, there's still issues that she has to deal with, but maybe for Nathan Algren, Tom Cruise, maybe now there's no friction there where otherwise there would have been. So maybe being clear and precise isn't the best, but then there are so many times where if you leave things up to chance, or you leave things up in the air, people are going to miscommunicate. I mean, you just have to look, you just have to text somebody. You know, they say something like, oh, I don't remember the actual numbers, but some massive percent of communication is actually nonverbal. Like in the tone of your voice, in your body movements, where your eyes are looking, all sorts of things. So, oh hey, 3 viewers! Man, you hopped in a little late. Just talking about communication, because I can. But anyway, so you guys know, when you're oh, he didn't like that. Or she. But, you know, when you're texting somebody, you don't get a lot of that extra communication. And so you're liable to misinterpret. You're liable to not be clear. Or like in my job, you know, where I'm dealing with a lot of, where I can deal with a lot of phone promotions, and phones are complicated, and there's money involved, and there's this thing that you have to do this, and this, and this. I try to be very, very specific, and very, very descriptive, and very, very, like, almost to a point where it might be a little much because it kind of turns into an information dump. But in that instance, you know, the less there is up in the air, the better. So, I guess the question then, if you guys wanted to answer, you wanted to chew on something over the week. And I'm not going to actually ask the obvious one, which is better, being direct or indirect? Because, honestly, I think it depends on the situation. So the question is when is it better to be direct? When is it better to be indirect? And what are some instances that you had to choose between one or the other? You know? Oh, that one didn't go around right. Excuse me. Oh, fire truck. Well, you know, I got a little bit of a late start, and I'm only at 28 minutes, but I think I'm going to call it there, because I'm pretty much done with both of these two topics, remakes and whatnot, and communication. Man, I always do the same stuff over and over again. But anyway, I have a different subject that we're going to talk about next week, but not enough time, so I'm just going to end it here. Thank you, you two, whoever you are, for tuning in. If you guys want to hear more, I do this almost every week. Just come, hang out, chill, listen to my stupid music in the background. Some people have said that it's fun to listen to me talk, so that's why I'm doing this. But yeah, I want to call it here. Tune back in Sunday, 9 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. If you want to hear some more. Alright, peace.